Broncos country, what is poppin'? It's your boy Mark here with Marcky Sports. Man, we are 5 days away from the NFL draft. We got the Nuggets and the Avalanche playing today, and we also got a Denver Broncos mailbag. Shout out to all of the great people on Twitter and in the Discord that submitted some wonderful questions to address today. I'm excited about it. If you love Denver sports, if you love the NFL draft, hit the subscribe button if you're not already. Like the video. It'll help me out. Tell a friend to like the video, and let's build this thing up, man. I'm almost at my goal at 1,000 subs before the draft. So let's see if we can get it, man. Thank you guys in advance. And you know what? Let's just dive right into it with this question. One of my favorite ones is a lot of the conversation is always about what do you want the Broncos to do in rounds 1 through 2, which is very true. But what do you want the Broncos to really key in on in rounds 3 through 6? And I love this. And obviously a lot of the answers are based off of what we do in rounds 1 through 2. But in those middle to late rounds, I would really like to see the Broncos do really two things that stand out to me. First is I want to see them finally draft an offensive tackle, somebody that has future starting ability, that's a very raw prospect, but that has all the tools to be able to develop into something really good. I think it's very smart to kind of get ahead of that and be able to, handpick a guy that you can groom into your system. Because, obviously the Garrett Bowles signed an extension. We still have Mike McGlinchey on contract for the next couple of years, but Mike McGlinchey's guarantees really are done after the season. Same with Garrett Bowles. So you're going to have flexibility, and depending on what other needs come up on the roster, who you want to sign, you could look at ways to be able to move on from those players and be able to replace them. And I like the idea of having it. Even though Frank Crum is somebody on this team that is intriguing for me, you can't put all your chips in one basket on him becoming something special. Alex Polcheski, again, as well as a right tackle, but bring in more to that room. Some guys that really stand out would be someone like a Charles Grant, right, from William and Mary. Someone that is very big, long, athletic. I think he's like 6'7", always played at smaller FCS schools. But he's got a ton of developmental traits that you love to see. Very athletic, able to really move, and he's very powerful as well. So you just kind of refine his technique. You get him to be a little bit stronger in pass pro. You're talking somebody that's 6'5", over 34.5-inch arms. So he's an absolute tank of a person. Very, very big guy. And like I said, still very raw. Really, he's played in, 23 more. He's actually almost a 40-game starter at the FCS level and in the ACC, All Coastal Athletic Association conference when he played his first couple seasons. And and then he ends up, finding himself really finishing up a majority of his career at William and Mary. But he's someone that really sticks out to me. I think he's going to go probably a lot higher than people think, because those guys with those kinds of traits tend to go higher. But I would not mind seeing him in round 3 or 4 at all as somebody that I think can be a really good tackle, a future tackle. Another guy is a guy from Oregon, Ajani Cornelius. Ajani Cornelius is, again, one of those guys, very, very very raw overall, but he's got the tools. He's got the long arms. He's, 6'5", 310. He's somebody that started off his career at Rhode Island, a very small school, before he played the last couple seasons for the Oregon Ducks. And obviously there's still a lot of room for growth. He's got a lot of experience, which is good, but there's still a lot of things that he has to be able to, just fix up his technique a little bit, become a little bit better in pass pro. He was mainly a right tackle throughout his career. So that would be one of the limitations. Is I don't know how he would transition to be a left tackle, but very durable guy. Somebody that is strong, big hands. I mean, like I said, long arms, but he just needs to be a little bit more solidified, a little bit stronger. He kind of gets, mauled a little bit more than you would like to see. And just throwing in one more name out there as someone that I think is going to be pretty interesting is Cameron Williams from Texas. I love the fact that he played at Texas, right? A big program. He's got all the tools, man. You're talking 6'6", 34.5-inch arms, 317 pounds. He's got absolutely ginormous hands. I mean, 11 3/8, by far the biggest. That is literally like a baseball glove of hands. He is a giant, giant person. He's not the best overall athlete. There's no way around that. But he's played, and he's also played right tackle in his career. I'm actually kind of surprised he came out a little bit early, because he's really only started in 16 games, 1 in 2023 and 15 last year at Texas. in 2024. So not a lot of starting experience, extremely raw. But my goodness, in a scheme that's not so much a wide zone, a little bit more of a gap scheme, more of a power scheme, which we kind of mix it up and run both here in Denver. He's someone that would be an absolute monster. I love how raw he is, and I feel like you get him into the system, you develop him for a year or two, he can be a bona fide stud tackle for you. So check out the name. Look out for somebody like Cameron Williams, the offensive tackle out of Texas. He would be a couple names that would come up to me. So I like the idea of that. Obviously another positional group that stands out to me, probably more in rounds 5 or 6, because we might end up with a 5th round pick. You never know. Is a second running back, right? So whoever you get the first running back, I'd like to see us be able to get a second running back, someone that does things well differently than the original guy that you got. Obviously, they could typically play on special teams quite a bit as well. So would love to be able to see us get a second running back at that part of the draft as well. Question number 2 is, how big of a priority do you think linebacker is for the Broncos in the draft? I think it's not a very big priority, because I do like, obviously, we'll see what happens with Alex Singleton, but I still like the idea of, reworking his deal. You can still keep him on here, whether he's a rotational player or he ends up being a starter if he looks good coming off the ACL tear. But being able to get Justin Sternad back was key for us, because he's a great special teams player. And that in spot duty, in games where you need for him to fill in, he's very capable of playing linebacker, right? But then you got, Lavelle Bailey, who's someone that really shined and popped a little bit last year in the preseason, that I think is an intriguing player as well. So you've got some depth pieces. You can always find some, veterans, some guys that are experienced that can come in. But I'm intrigued by it because, first of all, I like to be able to add to that room a little bit after the huge addition to Dre Greenlaw. And in addition, with a lot of these rookie linebackers, they can typically always have they can be 4-phase special teamers at linebacker. Usually they could be in the kick game, in the punting game, on kickoff duty, blocking on field goal and on punt situations. So you do find a lot of value with those kinds of guys as well, specifically with linebacker. So I think bringing in as much depth as you can find is always a good thing. There's a lot of late round guys that I really like there too, like Teddy Buchanan is somebody that stands out to me. Jay Higgins from Iowa. Those are 2 guys that I feel like could be a really good fit for us. But I'm all for the idea of bringing in some linebackers, but I wouldn't prioritize it too high. I still think I'd rather get more depth at corner. I'd rather get more depth at edge. I'd rather get a developmental offensive tackle as well, aside from the obvious positions of need of, I think wide receiver, but obviously tight end and running back being the biggest one as well. So I like that a lot. Speaking of tight end, rank these tight ends in order: Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo, Terrence Ferguson, Harold Fannin, and Gunnar Helm. Ooh, that's tough, man. This is a really, really tough question because I kind of group a lot of these guys, with the exception of Mason Taylor, in a very similar, and maybe Elijah Arroyo in a very similar tier. So, all right, let's kind of break this down here by the top guys. For me, definitely, I would rank Mason Taylor at the top of this list, and I would have Elijah Arroyo second on this list. The reason I'm choosing Mason Taylor over is because I think he's a very underrated athlete. I think he's a complete tight end. Love the fact that he's only 20 years old. Like he's played a lot of football, but yet he's still like a ball of clay that you could mold. So, and we talked a lot about, the fact that he's the son of Jason Taylor, a nephew of Zach Thomas. He has the family lineage, which is always very important. But he's just really well-rounded, man. He's someone that's been durable through his career. He's played in the SEC. He's been very productive. I love what he could bring as a blocker. I think you bring him in day one, he's contributing to your football team. And for the Broncos specifically, I think he's a really good complement to Evan Ingram. He can be a little bit more of that traditional inline type of tight end where you can have, Evan Ingram be, lined out wide and be more of your pass catcher. So I like that. Elijah Arroyo would be my second choice on this list, because the thing about Elijah Arroyo is he's got ridiculous traits. You hear a lot of great things about him from his teammates too, but just a crazy good athlete, someone that tore the Senior Bowl up, from what I recall. Just a very good player, fluid catcher of the football, and he has the frame to be able to develop into a really good blocker. He's shown signs that he's like halfway decent at it, but I really like what he can bring. He's still a pretty young, raw prospect as well, but someone that can really stretch the field and be more dynamic in the passing game right off the bat. 6'5", 250 pounds, and the dude can move. I can tell you that. But he's played quite a bit of football. He's just a little bit more raw, as being more of a complete tight end, which is why I would have him below Mason Taylor. But if you're going for upside and you're really interested in just seeing if you can squeeze every bit of talent out of somebody, Elijah Arroyo would probably be at the top of this list. All right. Now, moving next, I would rank Harold Fannin. And the reason I would rank Harold Fannin number 3 is because I feel like even though he doesn't test all that good, man, his game speed is just different. I love the kind of versatility that you can use with him. You can use him aligned to, close to the line of scrimmage. You can cook him out wide. You can put him back as a fullback. You can really get creative with his overall versatility. And he's just a gamer, man. He's very good after the catch. His yak ability is ridiculous. Like I said, I think the fact that he didn't test very well and didn't really show out all that great at the Senior Bowl when he was there hindered him a little bit, but I think teams are still going to love what they got from him. He absolutely dominated at Bowling Green, which he certainly should have against that level of competition. But I like the fact that he's a little bit shorter. Right? He's got better leverage. He's 6'3", which isn't, terribly short, but he's got a little bit more of that leverage to him. So I think he's got very high upside as a blocker, whether it's as a blocker as a tight end or as a lead blocker in a fullback role. And he just seems like he's a gamer, man. I really like what I see with Harold Fannin. The next two are tough because I really like these guys. This is a really good tight end class, man. But I think for me personally, I would probably rank Gunnar Helm a little bit higher than Terrence Ferguson. And the reason for that is simply because I think Gunnar Helm was someone that was overshadowed a little bit, like not getting all the opportunities possible when he was at Texas. Because, they had Matthew Golden, they had Isaiah Bond, Jaden Blue out of the backfield. I mean, they had a lot of other guys. But the thing that really sticks out to me about Gunnar Helm is that he's just a baller. Like he's athletic. Now I know he didn't combine because he messed up. What the hell? Oh, sorry, this thing's playing. 1 second. That's a little bit annoying. But I love the experience that he's gotten. He broke the single season record for receptions from a tight end. Last year, which is really big at a big college like that. 13.1 yards per reception. He's somebody that really, really stretches the field. I think he's a very good catcher of the football. I just like his game. I think he's a little bit more well-rounded overall than Terrence Ferguson. And it's not even that there's necessarily something particularly that I can put my finger on. I just really think that he's someone that, from a standpoint of, how he pops on tape and the kind of, sorry, 1 second, I'm gonna move this thing out of my way. The way that he just seems a lot more polished overall as a route runner is something that stands out to me. Now, I'll say I think Terrence Ferguson's probably right now a better blocker overall, but he's someone that he doesn't seem to have nearly as sure of hands as Gunnar Helm does. I think Gunnar Helm is a better catcher of the football. I think he's someone that comes down with those contested catches a little bit better. And he's got a surprising amount of yak ability. If I remember correctly, he was top 10 in the NCAA in terms of missed tackles forced by tight ends. And he's really got the ability to stretch the plays a little bit more than I would see from Terrence Ferguson. But they're both really good. And also coming out of a Steve Sarkisian offense, a little bit more pro ready. I like that a little bit more for tight ends than I do someone that's coming out of Oregon. That's going to be a little bit more limited in terms of what they're doing in Oregon versus what they'll actually end up doing in the NFL. I think there might be a little bit more of a learning curve there. But both guys very similar. I mean, from the build to the athleticism and all that, pretty similar dudes. Both 6'5" plus, 250 pounds plus. So I like both these guys. There's really not much of a gap between Terrence Ferguson and Gunnar Helm. But I think Gunnar Helm would have the advantage strictly because I think he's a better catcher of the football, can come down with those more contested catches a little bit better. And he's more sure-handed than Terrence Ferguson. But I'm good. I would love for any of these guys to be drafted by the Broncos, no doubt. Question is here: what is your preferred trade back scenario? Which includes the players. I think it's like which players you want to include. My preferred trade back scenario for sure would be a trade back in the first round. Now, obviously, you have to have, two to tango, like they always say. You have to have a team willing to trade up. But I love the idea of trading back from 20 down to maybe the mid-20s or even early 30s. I'd like to stay in the first round still, and ideally pick up at minimum a third-round pick, an additional third. That way you can have 4 selections in the top 100. I think it's a really good draft for that. That would be ideal. And if you could trade back and you could still, at that point, if we had a trade back scenario, I'd be good with us going with an Omarion Hampton or a Travion Henderson. Travion Henderson would be my preferred choice from the running back standpoint. Obviously, Emeka Egbuka would be someone that I think has a chance of still being there that I would love. He'd probably be my number 1 choice. Colson Loveland would be a dream, but I doubt he's going to be there. And then, any of those interior defensive linemen would be guys that I would be totally fine taking on a trade back where, whether it's Kenneth Grant or Derek Harmon, but I view them as being a little bit less likely. I would even be open to the idea of Luther Burden being someone that we would be able to take. And obviously Jaden Higgins. You guys know how I feel about Jaden Higgins. That would probably be my number 1 choice. Him and Egbuka would be like 1A and 1B. You trade back, you get yourself another third-round pick, and you're still able to come out with a very dynamic weapon in Jaden Higgins or in Emeka Egbuka. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I think the trade back scenario would be what I would prefer from the first round because this is such a good draft for that, in my opinion. All right. If you wanted to double dip at interior defensive lineman, what is your favorite combination? Very interesting question. I actually like this one a lot. So when I look at interior defensive line, I would think, okay, the best way to double dip is assuming that you're going to take an interior defensive lineman in the first round. And if that's the case in round 1, I love my top 2 guys in the first round are Derek Harmon and Kenneth Grant. I think we've talked about them at length on this channel. I think both of them are dynamic, very good, a little bit different players. Derek Harmon is going to be more of the pass rushing upside type of guy. Kenneth Grant is really just an unbelievable run stuffer, but can still be very disruptive in the pass game. But he's a little bit more of like a guy that can take on the double teams and clog up the holes depending on what it is that you're needing. So, that being the case, I would like to have one of them in the second round. Guys like someone like Alfred Collins or CJ West really stand out to me as to just really solid. I feel like they're going to have very high floors. They come into the NFL, they're going to be very good right away, but still have a good ceiling to develop into very, very solid, dynamic type of playmakers. So I like those guys. If you're talking about combinations in terms of double dipping, and I think for me, there's a couple of things that really stand out, first and foremost. I think for me, it's if you're going to go with someone like a Derek Harmon, who's a little bit more of a 3 technique, right, in the 315 to 320 pound range, that certainly would be, something that would make sense. I would like to see us get like a bigger bodied, specifically a nose tackle type of a player, someone that's 330 plus, right? Walter Nolan is also someone that's intriguing to me in the early rounds, but not as much as Derek Harmon and Kenneth Grant. So let's say we took Derek Harmon in the first round. I would love for us to go with his teammate like Jamari Caldwell as someone later in, the 4th or the 5th, somewhere in maybe day 3. He's somebody that is obviously more of a nose tackle, can really clog up the middle of the holes. Very, very good player. He could be a good run stuffing guy behind DJ Jones and Malcolm Roach, what we have now. And I love the fact that he's like 6'2", a little bit shorter, but still 330 pounds plus, because those guys typically are able to get really good leverage and they just take on double teams and they play that nose tackle role really well, where you're not going to light up the stat sheet, but you're going to open up a lot of opportunities for guys later on. We talked about this a little bit on the live the other day. JJ Pegues is someone that's really interesting. Now, he would be very similar of a player to Derek Harmon. So if we ended up getting Kenneth Grant, he might be somebody that would make a little bit more sense because he's kind of more of the pass rushing upside guy rather than the true, one tech. He could be more of the three technique type of guy, lining up in the B gap, kind of right there over the tackle and the center in a 3-4 defense. One of the guys, my under the radar guys that I had talked about a few weeks ago was Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, I believe. Let me make sure I got that one right. That would be really stupid if I didn't. I know he has a hyphenated name. Yeah. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins out of Georgia. This is somebody that is an intriguing player, definitely undersized. So, I would be fine. Like, even if we ended up getting a Derek Harmon, but we developed somebody like him later, he could, because he's a unique type of player. He's 6'5", he's about 276, very long arms as well. So he's going to give you a little bit more of that athleticism, a little more of the pass rushing juice. He actually tested out of his mind at the combine. And comes from a big conference in Georgia, big SEC guy. The big question is that the production wasn't always there. The film is very inconsistent. So whether it's a conditioning thing or a want to thing is going to be ultimately what determines his fate, right? If it's a conditioning thing, that's something that you can certainly fix, especially in the NFL. If it's a want to thing, that's going to usually be a big problem. And if you have work ethic concerns with somebody, it's never going to work out. But, take a look at Tyrion Ingram Dawkins. He's just extremely unique for me. I like his athleticism, a little bit of a tweener, but I really like what he shows and what he can do. So I think my overall favorite combination, there's so many guys, there's so many good combos, but really of we talked about is going with those Oregon guys. I love the idea of a Derek Harmon and Jamari Caldwell combo. Yes, they were teammates. That has nothing to really do with it, but I think they complemented each other really well in college, and I think that could translate very well into the NFL. All right, next question here is, who is your best round 5 through 7 gem? Man, there's a lot, and a lot of them I've talked about, so I'm not going to get into them. I'm going to pick one that I haven't really talked about very much. And this is somebody that just keeps coming back to me, man. I just feel like he's going to be a really good player. And if I had to choose one, which is tough because there's a lot. So I'll name some honorable mentions afterwards. But the one that stands out to me consistently is Ricky White, wide receiver out of UNLV. And the reason is because I feel like he's just a really solid receiver, very well-rounded. Doesn't do anything great, but seems to be doing all things very well. Like, he's dynamic with the ball in his hands. He's a good route runner. He's someone that I think is just going to be like a really good contributor overall. But the thing that stands out to me the most about Ricky White is I think he has the opportunity to be an absolutely elite special teams player. And in rounds 5 through 7, that is exactly what you want to find with guys that they're going to be special teams aces. And if they end up being really good players on offense or defense, that's great. Ricky White, I feel like, is that. Man, he's blocked so many punts in his and kicks in his career. He's just that dude when it comes to special teams. So I love that about him. But even as a receiver, right? I mean, he's still 6'1", so he's got the size, 190 pounds, he's a little bit skinnier, but the dude can move. He does struggle with dropping the football. I will say that he's had some focus drops, but those are things that you can fix. But very productive, played a lot of football over a 3-year career. He started over 30. Let me check my notes real quick. Pull this up, sorry. Yeah, 36 games played in college and been very productive every year. 51 catches his freshman year, 88 catches his sophomore year, 78 catches this past year as a junior, over 1,400 yards as a sophomore, over 1,000 yards this year, 8 touchdowns last year, 11 touchdowns in 2024. Super productive. Yes, he played at UNLV, but super, super productive, man. And in addition to that, he's a baller on special teams. Really love him. I would love to get him as a player in the 5th to 7th round. I think he's truly a hidden gem and someone that a coach and a team out there will really, really fall in love with. Coolio, man. Let's get some water in because I'm getting dried up talking about all these different questions. You guys are awesome, though. All right. Last one. What percentage would you give the Broncos to go running back in round 1? All right. This is one of those questions where it's like, everyone knows that I'm not a proponent of taking a running back in round 1. I get it. I'm not gonna, die on that take. But here's the thing for me. I think kind of reading through the tea leaves, there was a lot of things that Sean Payton and George Payton said in their most recent presser. They also said when they were at the owners meeting that stood out. They constantly kept saying, yeah, like even George Payton, I feel like he slipped up and he said, yeah, I think, in the rounds 2 through 7, there's a lot of really good running backs. Could be smoke screens, and then in the most recent presser, they had talked about someone brought up that Sean Payton, they're like, yeah, you took two running backs in the first round. He's like, I can think of one in Ingram. And then he played it off like he forgot about Reggie Bush, but he kind of wanted to shut that down of like, yeah. So that one I felt like was more of a smokescreen because it made them want to. So it's a little bit confusing. But I think ultimately they know. I think they look at this running back room and I think that they're, aside from Ashton Genty, I believe their board is going to be very different than the consensus. I think without a doubt, I think running back 2 for them is Travion Henderson. I think LaQuint Allen is someone that's rated pretty highly on their board. I think Quinshon Judkins is someone that they're pretty high on, maybe DJ Giddens. So I think that there's a lot. I would say, given the depth of this and really the history of Sean and George Payton, I think there's about I'd say 15 to 20% chance that they take a running back in the first round, assuming they're not trading back. If you trade back and you get an additional pick, then it changes things because the value then is much better. It's much higher. And maybe you traded back in order to be able to get guys at other positions, in the middle portion of the draft. So at that point, I would rank it pretty high. But I say 15 to 20% would be the percentage that I would give it now. I think there's a higher chance the Broncos go interior defensive lineman, tight end, or wide receiver in this draft, depending on how it falls. So that is all I got, guys, in terms of all the mailbag questions. I appreciate y'all tuning in, man. Let me know below what your thoughts are on any of the questions. Where did I get it wrong? Maybe there's some guys that I left out. But stay tuned, man. Leading up to the to draft week, we got a lot of really fun videos coming up, and I'm super excited. And then on Wednesday, I'll be releasing my final mock draft, first round mock, 2.0 for me. The last one with all the questions and all the smoke and all the reports that you're hearing. We'll have it all for you guys live here on the channel. So stay tuned for that. Y'all be sure to stay safe, man. Spend time with those people that you love the most. Go Broncos. And until the next video, peace out.